And Mr. Keaton, if you are ready to jump in, I believe we can get you started 1 or 2 minutes early.
I get to start early. That is exciting. All right. Thank you, team, for everything up until this point. So as some of you may know, especially maybe in the last few seconds, my name is Chris Keaton. I am the other director of BI here at LPA as our practice grows in a wonderful way. We've had the opportunity to increase the size of our team as well as increase the size of our leadership team. So I have the opportunity to join Rich and look after a bit of our Cognos area as well. So what I'm here to tell you about is going to be dashboards, data modules, all the Ds. It's Cognos in 3D. But before we get started, I do want to tell you we're all about being agile. And there's already been some incredible demand. People have said, we loved that session at the beginning of this user group. We want more. And we wouldn't be your analytical partner if we didn't give you what the people want. So we've added, here in the last hour, we've added a session on August 6th from 10 to 11:30. There will be an extended What's New in Cognos Analytics 11.2 workshop. It's a hands-on workshop, so you'll be able to get in the sample environment and spend about an hour and a half being taken through what you saw earlier today, but also a lot more. We'll be able to get into depth. You'll get to see that entire PowerPoint presentation in all of its glory, as well as work with the tool in a hands-on capacity. So if you are interested in that, you will be receiving an email at the end of this from our great organizers, and registration information for that session will be included in that follow-up email. And I imagine shortly thereafter on lpa.com/events. So if you're interested in joining us for that What's New session, the extended What's New session, we would be happy to have you. So me, what am I here to talk about today? Analytics in 3D, Triple D Nation, data sets, data modules, and dashboards. And maybe if we have some time, we'll talk a little bit more about mobile. So if you're not taking advantage of these features in Cognos, you should be. Guy Fieri said that, not the celebrity chef Guy Fieri, but some guy who's named Fieri. He just loves Cognos. I don't think I'm legally allowed to say Guy Fieri said that, so we're just going to pretend it's a dude named Guy Fieri. But all joking aside, these features are the features that you've been hearing about throughout the course of the day, right? You've been hearing people talk about data sets, data modules, dashboards, and we've shown a little bit at the beginning, and Matt and company just talked a little bit about how those were the game changers, right? Democratization of data. I love that term, right? Part of one of the great opportunities of new Cognos is the ability to let people get in there. Right? Those other tools, some of the niche tools that crept in around the edge, yeah, they're okay. They're good. They do good things. One of their main value propositions was, yeah, let's stitch together data real quick and create something, And Cognos was always the big enterprise, powerful tool. Well, guess what? If you're a Cognos person, you not only have that big, powerful, beefy Cognos that you've had forever, that is able to burst and distribute and create pixel perfect reports. You have got a great prototyping tool. You've got a great self-service tool. You've got a great ability to knock down those shadow data, right? Those silos, those, oh gosh, where's that data? No, it's on Susan's desk. It's in her spreadsheet. Well, guess what? We can bring Susan's spreadsheet in, make it part of the company's data, in a matter of 30 seconds, right? So, and I'm not even, this isn't even hyperbole. So what I'm gonna try to talk about here is a light version of that hands-on workshop that was talked about at the beginning, the taking Cognos to the next level. That is the session we're offering, as you saw, in October and September. If demand remains high, we'll add additional sessions. So we get into this much deeper level, right? A little more than a half an hour. We've got about 3 hours of great training where we'll show you actually how to create the data sets, how to create some data modules, and how to create some dashboards. And we wrap it up with how to consume those things on your mobile device. So it's a great session. I really recommend joining it if you're interested in that free training and enablement. So this is a piece of that. So if you come, I apologize, you'll see a couple of these slides, but it'll be from a different perspective, maybe a little bit. So just first, before we get started, the trends we're seeing, what is LPA seeing out there? Because we talk to an awful lot of people, right? We're seeing cloud migrations. A lot of people are taking advantage of cloud, especially the IBM software as a service opportunity. There's a lot of great opportunities to move to the cloud, a lot of ways that you can sort of reduce that overhead of having to administer and install and all that fun stuff, which is something that a lot of people are interested in. Not only mention the scalability, right? So we've talked about the wonders of cloud. We're seeing that happen. It's really starting to happen with a lot of our customers. Another one is cloud analytics as a force multiplier. It's maybe like a video game talk there, but a force multiplier for planning analytics, right? So if those of you that have TM1 planning analytics, you might have very established cubes that are running your budgeting and forecasting, but you are having a little difficulty distributing it, right? How do I get that into the hands of the masses? Well, Cognos pairs so well with that. Using the cubes as a source, we can use Cognos as the engine to get that out and get that in people's hands and get people working with that data without having necessarily to be in planning analytics. So using that as a complementary tool is a big thing people are doing lately. Obviously, remote training and knowledge transfer, that's become a major thing in the last, what is it now, 17 months? I have my first business trip next week. Very excited to get on an airplane. I hope they remember who I was. But still, remote training, knowledge transfer, I don't think that's going to go anywhere, right? We've gotten used to working remotely, and LPA has gotten very good at doing this kind of enablement. And luckily, because it's remote, we're able to sort of make it fit your schedule too. So it doesn't have to be 4 days straight of training. We can break it up a little bit and make it a little more digestible. A lot of people have been leaning into Cognos after some of those tools that crept in have started to fizzle out a little bit. Like once we realize maybe they're not so good at distribution, or they're not so good at pixel perfect type stuff, or it requires a ton of data prep, right? Those tools, people are realizing, hey, Cognos has not only caught up but begun to exceed what those tools do. So the old lean in, right? I love that term. People use it a lot lately. Lean in. All right, we're going to lean into CA. And of course, Cloud Plaque, that's the cloud for dentists. Cloud Pack and the platform modernization idea also becoming a very popular topic. So just to sort of set the framework of some of the trends that we're seeing as we get into here. Now, I don't want to tell you that traditional Cognos is a bad thing. I love traditional Cognos. Traditional Cognos has paid my mortgage for 20 years. It's like my fourth child. So there's nothing wrong with it, but just sort of to compare and contrast, what's the difference between traditional Cognos and next level Cognos? Well, traditional Cognos, we pointed against our EDWs, maybe if we were lucky, our transactional systems to get some of that real-time stuff, data marts and the like. Next level Cognos, all of that's still there, but let's talk about user data. Let's talk about data lakes. Let's talk about APIs and connections out to those sources that we're traditionally a little less likely to have involved in our analytical environment. Traditional Cognos, Framework Manager. Nothing wrong with Framework Manager, not going anywhere. There was a Q&A out there, what's happened in Framework Manager? Rich said absolutely nothing, I agree. There is nothing wrong with FM. But data modules, especially if you're looking at the cloud, are a great option. And we'll do a little compare and contrast in a second here about framework versus data modules and what's similar and what's different. Pixel perfect reports, great. I've created invoices, letters from the CEO, annual reports, 200-page annual reports, perfectly possible in traditional Cognos. But can I now have this interactive AI-infused analytics, the ability to drag a few things into the screen and see a visualization in a matter of a few seconds? Yes, right? That's what Query Studio always dreamed of being, right? Get me that quick answer, but now it's get me that quick answer with jazz hands, right? And then of course, Cognos traditionally enterprise reporting powerhouse. Oh, look at that, ERP. Well, no, not an ERP. Enterprise reporting powerhouse though. And now we've got that enterprise reporting powerhouse with enhanced self-service. the democratization. Let people work with their data. So the first D I'm going to talk about was just referenced in the previous session, and that is the data set. So for those of you who haven't explored data sets, do, please. They are a great opportunity for you to not only increase your performance, but also reduce some of the call on your network, reduce some of the call in your databases. It is a great way to have your picture taken off the DBA dartboard. I feel like sometimes my picture's right in the bullseye of the DBA team. They just, Keaton, hit them right between the eyes, right? With data sets, I can call that commonly used, that repeatedly used data set. I can call that maybe once an hour, maybe once every 15 minutes, heck, maybe even once a day. Materialize that in Cognos, and then have my dashboards, my reports hitting that in the Cognos brain, rather than over the wire, hitting my database, causing, perhaps latency in the middle because of that, right? That's the performance increase. Bring it home, bring it right onto my Cognos environment. It gets stored in the Cognos content store, little Parquet file down there that really doesn't take a whole lot of space. Just anecdotally, I think IBM says when you're dealing with data sets, 8 million records is about the threshold, right? If 8 million or below, you're going to get that kind of, it's definitely going to beat. If you're dealing with volumes greater than 8 million records, data sets start to, become on par, I'd say, with your traditional action, just as a little sort of side note there. So the data comes over, it's stored on the server. You're sparing some of the latency, and you're also in control of when it refreshes, and you're also increasing performance. A lot of these dashboard solutions where organizations are needing that immediate performance. Maybe you've got a housekeeper in the hallway who's responsible for cleaning the floor of rooms, and the housekeeper used to have a clipboard. Now they have an iPad, and on that iPad, the front desk can rearrange the rooms so they hit it. So you don't have to stand there when you try to check in an hour early waiting for your room, because they're able to reorder the inventory and move people's work streams around. That can be fueled by refreshing a data set behind a dashboard and giving that sort of instantaneous response. What does it look like this minute, right? So these data sets can be scheduled to update just like any other report, right? The same levels of frequency that you can run a report in the background, you can update a data set to refresh. Data modules, we've talked about them a lot today. Rich got in and showed us a little bit of data module. Not a huge change in 11.2 perhaps, but still a huge change for those of us who are coming sort of out of the framework forest. So the great opportunity here with data modules is self-service model, right? So when we would train somebody on Framework Manager, I don't know about your personal experience, but generally we'd say minimum 3 days, generally 5 days of actual intensive training. And then, probably a good few weeks, months, years, decades, centuries of experience before you feel really, truly confident. It's a great tool, but it's got a lot going on. And I think people just scrape the surface of it, truthfully. Data modules, I can train you data modules in 6 to 8 hours and basically get you a very similar level of capability in that day than it would take for that 3 days or that 5 days of training. So that sort of speaks to the level of complexity of the interface. It's a lot more user-friendly, a lot more intuitive, of course, and helps perhaps get this idea of modeling, shake off the mystery around it and get it out to the people. We can use it for organizations that are very governance focused, right? Maybe the idea of letting people do modeling is a scary topic, right? And I can agree, right? You don't want hundreds and hundreds of data modules out there, but there are opportunities to create golden data modules, right? Create a view of that area of your business and let people leverage it, right? So we can control it from that perspective. And these data modules have a parent-child relationship. So if you make a change in the core, it will reflect in anything that is hung off that data module in terms of even subsequent data modules. So we can definitely manage it, right? And of course, you have your full security capabilities. You want to give them a folder where they can explore, but you don't want to let them put it in production. You can absolutely do that as well, right? Because it's just an object and can be secured as such. The other thing about data modules that's great is you can use a framework manager as a source, right? You can take your framework manager model, publish the package, and your package becomes the core of your data module. And then we just use data modules to sort of ornament it. I think of it like a holiday tree, right? You've got the evergreen, which is your framework package, and we're going to ornament it. We're going to put the lights on it. We're going to add, a few other tables, maybe bring in a couple spreadsheets, really extend that thing and turn it from a beautiful evergreen into a sparkling tree. So we want to look real quickly here at the and the or, and then I promise I'm going to get into a demo. We're going to go out with a bang. Hopefully everything will go well. I don't want to slide you to death, but I do want to just take a little bit at the and the or. This is the and. So data modules and framework managers. What is common? Well, of course, I can manage my metadata. That's what the tools are all about. That includes creating relationships, joins, calcs, selectable filters, embedded filters, and the like, right? I can do user group data level security in both. I can do determinants for multi-granular tables. In data modules, they're called column dependencies. I can organize and order to my heart's content. I also have the ability to do dimensional type stuff in there. I have constant validation. I can use SQL as a source, right? So there's a lot that is very similar between the two. Now I'm gonna out him. Rich Chester made me put these asterisks on this slide. He and I go back and forth. I'm very, very bullish on data modules. I think more so than he wants me to be. But now that we're peers, I'm saying, you know what, data modules are great. I'm going all on. I'm all in. Boom. Straightforward on data modules. But I did add these asterisks because they are important to consider. Data modules do support a little less complexity in some of the definitions of these things, like relationships and the filters, because they're intended to be simple for maybe super users and a little less, I'm a data modeler, right? So the complexity that you can do in Framework Manager is definitely still there. Data modules sort of are a little bit of a lighter version of some of this stuff. So I agree, but I still think when you're starting a new project, try it with data modules unless you hit a reason why you shouldn't. What's the or? So what's the difference between the two? So data modules, of course, web-based versus the client install that we know of Framework Manager. Data modules have amazing relative time capabilities, right? It has that ability to bring in, and I'm going to try to show you in a second how quickly it is to get that year to date, week to date, month to date, same time last year type stuff. Almost like what we used to have in Transformer, right? That super quick relative time. It even has, 454 retail calendars. It's got fiscal calendars. There's all kinds of fun stuff there. Still in Framework Manager, want to use that? I'm going to be building it manually. So that's, to me, a huge, huge benefit in the data modules column. We've also got a little bit of AI-infused model generation. Now, of course, Framework Manager has the metadata wizard, which can bring in your tables and your relationships if you've got good keys and good naming. But we'll see data modules, it has that plus, right? It's got that AI infusion. It allows me to sort of search via keywords to build a proposal that might get me 80% of my model right out of the gate, right? Which is kind of exciting. External file integration, of course, and then GUI-based functions for all of these things you're looking at here: grouping, cleansing, splitting of fields, things that you can do in the tool, in Framework Manager manually with case statements and things like that, but they're GUI-based, so you can click, click, click to cleanse your field. Rather than write all kinds of fun coalesces and if then null handling, all that fun stuff. And of course, with data modules, you can use data sets, previously mentioned, as a source. Framework Manager has that model advisor. If we could have the model advisor in data modules, that would probably sell me forever, right? Change something and see what it's going to impact, right? We don't have that in data modules. the sorting of query objects, branch and merge, parameter maps. So if you're deep into multilingualness, parameter maps and framework manager, little impact analysis, the dependencies, and the centralized control ID. So if you like that stuff and you need that stuff, no reason why you need to go away from framework manager, but just consider where they could perhaps coexist. For timing purposes, I'm not going to get into what are dashboards. The only thing I'm going to say is dashboards in IBM lingo is this quick answer, real-time monitoring. There's a bunch of really good use cases for those dashboards. So, the dashboard with a lowercase d is in the concept of at-a-glance reporting, can be accomplished still with well-designed reports, as well as dashboards. I really think there are specific great cases for dashboards, and we're going to take a look at some in a second. And of course, if you have a dashboard, you can have a story. One of my favorite ways to use a story is not necessarily to give my master's thesis presentation to the board, right? That's a thing. We could certainly do that. But one of the neatest ways to use a story maybe is to introduce a dashboard, right? Create your dashboard, but bring it in as a story and use annotation, fly in notes, click here to see, look over here if you want to do, X, Y, and Z. This is how to filter. And you can sort of animate that process through a series of autoplayed scenes that orients people to the dashboard. Because once that's done, what is in front of you but basically an interactive dashboard? So stories, I think, have a unique opportunity if you sort of think outside the box. And of course, then there's the Watson Assistant. And we know and we've heard and we know Watson Assistant is embedded throughout. It's doing machine learning, natural language processing, natural language generation. You can talk to Cognos now. I mean, I've been talking to Cognos for 20 years, but sometimes it's an interesting conversation. But now I can actually talk to Cognos and Cognos comes back to me, which is very exciting. That Watson Assistant is infused throughout the tool, right? So as you're working, as you're building things, it's learning you. It's getting to understand what types of visualizations you like. So in the future, when you drag something on the page, it suggests that type of visualization, whereas someone sitting one desk over might see another type of visualization based on what they've been doing, right? So Cognos is paying attention to what you're doing and making your life easier. Natural language processing, of course, asking questions. We already saw Rich demoed the create dashboard, earlier, sort of speaking to it. Cognos says, okay. I love how it says, okay, when you say create dashboard. Sure. Someday it's going to say, no, I'm not creating a dashboard for you. No, it would never do that. It will always help. So that assistant you'll find in explorations, you'll find it in dashboards, and you're finding it actually sort of under the covers even as you work on reporting and the like. So what I'm going to challenge myself with here is, because I knew I'd be a little time constrained. And you'll see soon, there's going to be a little video put up on the LPA site, which is data to dashboard. I think I said in 30 seconds. A heck of a challenge. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to say data to dashboard in minutes, because I want to slow it down a little bit and tell you a little bit about what I'm doing as I'm going along. So I am going to pop over into our Cognos environment. Logging in, and we see our beautiful carbon design, as we saw earlier in Rich's presentation. And I'm going to immediately start with an external data file. So what I have here is a spreadsheet. It is a spreadsheet called CRM and Social Data Media, or data, if you want to sound fancy. And all it is, a couple of tabs. There's some keywords, some sentiment analysis, a little bit of CRM information here, right? Nothing too crazy. We can take spreadsheets, we can take CSVs, we can even take zip files full of CSVs, and Cognos will make sense of it. So how do I get that in? Well, we've seen the upload file button exists all over the place, even under the hamburger button. But even better, let's just click on it and drag it into the window. You see, I've got the opportunity to make it a data module, an exploration, or a dashboard directly. Now, personally, I would never recommend going direct to dashboard. Why? if that spreadsheet changes in the future, the structure of the format, I don't want our dashboards to necessarily break. Cognos will handle it a little bit with relinking, but there are still some possibilities you could do something that could cause you some trouble. So what I like to do is always pass a spreadsheet through a data module. So that's what we'll do here. So we bring it in, you see it initializes the upload. It's gonna look, and it's doing a lot more. It's not just buying time by saying analyzing, it's actually looking at fields and determining and doing a little data profiling. Because when we open this up, you're gonna see it has qualified things as different data types, right? You've got some measures down here, you've got some attributes, you've got some dates. Now, one thing it did do is I see here product number came in as a measure. And that, maybe because it's number, I don't know, what exactly threw Watson off in that case, but that's okay. It's a real simple change. If you've been modeling, all we need to do to change that is go say, you're not a measure, you're an identifier, right? Come over to the properties and change that up. That way I can use it in future relationships, right? Because relationships don't like to be based on measures. You can see my tabs were brought in as individual query subjects, essentially, tables, right? And you can see my interface here. I can look at my data in its entirety. I can look at relationships, in which case right now there aren't any because these are just two independent concepts. And if I had defined custom tables, such as merged tables or tables based on SQL, you would see them on this tab, right? So before I go much further, I just want to show you one of those cool GUI-based functions. Let's take a look at age, right? Age is an explicit number when I look at the grid here, right? It's going to say, hey, 42, 59, 47. Those are getting way too close to my age. So I'm just going to go ahead and create some groups. So create a data group. And you see right here, this is the GUI idea. The modelers among you are going, well, aren't you really just creating a case statement? I am, but I'm creating a case statement plus, right? So let's just go here, 65, 45, 30, and 18, right? And I can come over here and say, these are minors, not someone that goes into a cave with a light on their hat, but people under 18. And 65 and above, oof, this could get controversial. I'm gonna call them seniors just for the sake of argument, because they can get the McDonald's coffee discounts. That said, I plan on working till I'm 76, so I don't think we're gonna have to raise this bar someday. So now that I've created this the way I want it, I go ahead and click create. And as easy as that, I've got myself a new field called aged group. You see, I can come down here, reorder it, put them sort of side by side, and you see now my data reflected. Just real quickly here, watching the time, I know I've got about 3 minutes left, but maybe you'll forgive me and let me roll over by a couple of minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and show you the sort of intent-driven modeling here. So we're gonna go ahead and add a new source. This source is going to be based on a data server. So this is just a relational database. I will use my friendly neighborhood Great Outdoors sales. Clicking there, clicking on the Go Sales schema. Moving forward, I can choose tables or I can discover tables. The choose tables is kind of, that's what we expect it to be, but the discover is the exciting part, right? So let's click next. Goes out, looks at my data source, says these are the keywords. 75 of them is what I'm looking for. You can change this number if you like. I'm just going to say, give me product orders, right? Let's look at some keywords there. Clicking next, you'll see it's going to propose a model. Now it's proposing this model based on, of course, primary foreign keys, common terminology, things like that. So if you've got a good underlying data structure, this isn't Great Outdoors smoke and mirrors. It is a tiny bit, but I've done this with people's real systems, and this does work. It's kind of exciting. I sit here and I move these because I have a touch of what the kids call the OCD. Everything I do here is completely pointless because when I click OK, it's going to bring it on the page however it likes. Now this is where I can do my, real reorganizing, and I'll spare you because we are being observant of time, but I will do just a tiny bit of reorganizing just to help me get to the next idea, which is let's attach our social media spreadsheet to the data. So I'm going to take social media data and attach it to my orders. Clicking on order details, clicking on social media data, right click, choose a new relationship. This is the fancy new relationship editor, which you'll see has a little bit of bells and whistles. Product number, little preview. So when I come over here and choose product number on the other side, it's the same type. So I feel pretty good that I'm in the right ballpark here. Down here, of course, my sprocket gives me this ability to look at the cardinality, the relationship type. In this case, there's the little eye there that shows you, and I don't care how long you've been doing this, I still mouth it to myself, include all rows from table 1. And yeah, that's what I want to do. It's a left outer join because I don't want to eliminate an order just because somebody didn't talk about it on Facebook. So I'll call it a left outer join. I'll go ahead and just choose match columns. You'll see a little preview here if I click refresh. And we say, oh no, this lantern caught fire in the Valley Forest. That is not good feedback. We better look into that lantern. But now I have related order details, social media data. For all intents and purposes, they are together. Let's go ahead and try it just to see what it looks like. This is what my users would see in the reporting interface. Okay, so here it's all one. I don't know that this is a spreadsheet. This is just part of my data. So let's just say, let's look at the source. Let's bring in a little sentiment, count of social media comments. Let's just see if this makes sense. And look at this, working like a charm. Okay, heavily integrated with all my other stuff. I feel pretty good about it. I see that there is an age group there. If I take a look at my the age group is just about set up. And we see, the 30 to 45-year-olds are not liking us on Facebook. But if anyone's been on Facebook lately, I'm sure you will agree. That tends to be the prevailing sentiment. So we go ahead and close out that tab. We feel real good about this data module. I'm just going to give it a quick save and call it virtual user group data module. Jesse, if you want to stop me, you can, but I'm just going to roll forward just the last part. We'll go ahead and save that.
Plenty of time, Chris. Plenty.
Okay. I'm flying, so I apologize. If you guys want to talk about this slower, give me a call. I got no problem doing it with you. So I'll go ahead up here and close down that data module because I'm effectively done with it. And let's look at it in a dashboard. I'll go ahead and click on dashboard. Bring her into a blank one. And select the source that I just created. That was in my content. There's my virtual user group data module. Go ahead, add it to the mix. And what can I do here in this dashboarding world? Well, what if I wanted to say source of my comments by sentiment? So I'm going to click those 3 fields, drag them right into the dashboard world. It's going to think for a second and say, I've been very column heavy lately in my personal life, so it's thinking column is the way to go. That's no problem, right? I actually think this isn't terrible. If you want to change it around, well, you can, of course, change the visualization by coming up here and saying, you know what, I'd much rather see that at the bar. I'd always rather see that at the bar. Just kidding. And you have the ability to say, you know what, instead of being source there, why don't we change this? Why don't we make sentiment the color, and why don't we make source the bars? So now I'm seeing sort of, people are more positive on Facebook and Twitter than they are on Reddit and Instagram. Interesting. All right, so you can see that sort of angle. Of course, Rich, I texted him. I said, you stole my thunder because I was going to tell you all about Create Dashboard. Still going to do it. I refuse to stop. Create Dashboard, if I could spell. There we go. Okay. See that? Watson said okay and created this really cool dashboard. Now I like to pose this as, you're not going to love every one of these visualizations, right? There's certain things that, come across and you go, I don't know how I feel about that. But if you see this and you love this, you can go ahead and pin that, and basically it's going to sort of favorite it, and then it's going to be over here and you can use it in the future, right? So you can bring it into a previous dashboard, like the one I had tried to start over here, right? So I can bring in this visualization and drop it on the page. Okay, so dashboards, very exciting. Another thing I love about the dashboards here with the assistant is, you know, of course, I like suggest questions, because sometimes I don't know what to do, right? I don't know the data as great as well as Watson, because Watson figured it out. So let's say suggest questions. I'll come back and say, well, here's some things I could talk to you about, you know, and compare quantity unit cost by ship date. Sure, let's click on that. And it'll give me a really impressive bubble to look at it as a heat map. I could say, you know what, show me this as a word cloud, right? There's all kinds of options, but in this case, I probably am going to want to see it as flat data. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. A lot of people will say dashboards don't use text. I'm okay with it as long as you use it sparingly, right? Just your own personal design choice. And once you have something you like, pull it over to the page and it becomes part of your dashboard. I can reorganize these. I can drag them around for days. I'm not going to do it, but I am going to do something here where I show you one of my favorite things to do. And take these off for a second. Let's get a little crazy. Let's bring over our age group field and just drop it on the page. When you do that, it creates like a pseudo prompt, and this is going to illustrate, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not in dashboards, but this will sort of illustrate a neat thing. You can give users the ability to group here, right? So I click, there's my group I used. Let's see how that impacts, right? And see how the widgets are automatically brought together? That to me is a very exciting thing, right? So everything without any work, you're able to tie stuff together. All right. So that said, I realize I'm just going to do one more thing, because I realized I said I was going to do it and I didn't do it in my haste. Let me show you, before we open up for questions, let me show you how to integrate dynamic dates in a data module. So back into our virtual user group data module, I'm going to add a source. And this source, this comes with your Cognos install. There's a calendars folder. Don't delete it because you don't know what to do with it. Keep it because you're going to want to use it later. You'll see retail 454, Gregorian fiscal. If your fiscal year is offset, you'll see there's one for each of the months. So if my fiscal year starts in March, go ahead and pick that one. That will bring that in here. You see it's grayed out, it's hidden. Now, how do I use this to create my dynamic dates? I'm going to go find a date that I want to use dynamically. So order date will be that. Over in the properties, watch how easy this is. Lookup reference, calendar. And then as easy as that, I've now under there got embedded, selectable filters for prior week, prior month. Look at that, boom. Look at all these wonderful dynamic categories that were just created for filters that I can drag in. And you say, that's cool, Keaton, but what if I want to do dynamic measures? Well, no problem. Let's go take a look at the quantity field and change the lookup reference there to reference what I just did with the order date. And look at that, a twisty, and now I have prior month, prior year, all that fun stuff, right? So that, you know, for those of you that were like, oh, dynamic dates are a nightmare, look at what data modules do for you. All right. So with that, I think I will say pleased to be joining us in the extended session where I don't have to run through it so fast. If you register for these, you guys will have the ability to work directly in this system, which is great. And I look forward to seeing you in future sessions. Thank you for your attention.